Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Stories Behind Products number 5. Sleep apnea can cause people to feel tired and drowsy, and feeling a bit tired during the day may seem insignificant. However, sleep apnea can cause severe medical complications. And undiagnosed and untreated, sleep apnea has a high economic impact and endangers public safety. So my name is Oya Demirbilek, and I am a professor of industrial design at UNSW. I welcome you from the beautiful Bijikul country where I live and work, and acknowledge the Bijikul people who are the traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, both past and present. And today is a special day. It is the birthday of UNSW, the inaugural foundation day of the university's establishment in July 1949. So this evening, our presenters, Paul and Shannon from ResMed, will present the story of a sleep apnea mask. They designed the N30i to make therapy more natural by providing the freedom to sleep in any position. And ResMed is a global leader in sleep technology that has its origins right here in Australia. And ResMed's goal is to provide people with the means to awaken their best and enjoy healthier living by promoting good sleep habits and creating awareness for sleep disorders like sleep apnea. So the presenters today and the presenters for our next Stories Behind Products number 6 have been curated by Christina Zlomislic Brancaccio. Christina is one of our alumni, and she works at ResMed as their director, product design, patient interface. So thank you, Christina. Our first presenter, Paul Derrick Watson, graduated from Art Center College of Design, Pasadena, and has been a lead industrial designer at ResMed since 2015, researching and designing for CPAP users' unmet needs. Paul has contributed to many designs and prototypes for ResMed, and before that, he was creative designer for General Motors. He later joined Evans and Sutherland Europe, then an industrial design firm called Design Initiative, and has worked on transportation and product design projects in North America, Europe, and Asia for companies such as Ford, Chrysler, Fiat, Hyundai, Opel, Audi, Peterbilt, Volkswagen, Porsche, and Philips. Paul has been a guest lecturer at the Art Center College of Design Europe, the Scottsdale Museum of Modern Art, and adjunct professor at the California College of Arts in San Francisco. Our second presenter, Shannon Day, studied industrial design at Western Sydney University and began his industrial design career at Design Edge. It's a Sydney-based design consultancy. And with a decade of design and design management roles, Shannon designed and led many different projects for domestic and international clients in areas such as office furniture, electrical, consumer, and lighting. Shannon joined ResMed in 2014 and has worked in technical and design management roles in many research and technology projects and product developments. Shannon currently leads the mask design architecture team across Sydney and Singapore, and he plays a key role in the strategic development of ResMed's current future mask portfolio. So I will now hand over to Paul and Shannon. Over to you both.
Thank you. I think we'll share our screen now.
I stop sharing, yep.
Thank you, and we'll start the presentation. Thank you very much for that great introduction, and thank you for allowing us the time to speak about our product. Again, hi, and thanks for having us. My name is Paul.
And I'm Shannon. Yeah, and today we're gonna talk you through the story behind our N30i sleep apnea mask. But I guess before we jump into and talk about the detail about the mask, we thought it'd be good to sort of tell you a bit about what sleep apnea actually is and what these products do.
So to help you understand sleep apnea, there are 3 main types of sleep apnea. There's obstructive sleep apnea. That's the most common form that occurs when the throat muscles relax. There's
There's central sleep apnea, which occurs when your brain doesn't send a proper signal to the muscles that control your breathing.
And finally, there's complex sleep apnea, which occurs when someone has both obstructive and central sleep apnea. Here we'll just show you a short video that demonstrates what occurs during a sleep apnea event. So you see the muscles will relax in the upper airway. And what's important to note here is the chest is still trying to breathe, but it can't draw air in. A true apnea lasts a minimum of 10 seconds. But then the lack of air causes the person to wake up.
This is so this is what we call a obstructive sleep apnea, and these can happen anywhere between sort of 5 to 45 times, an hour, right?
Yes, yes. So this is how we measure the advance. So just a quick brief history on ResMed, because the fascinating part, and I think is particularly for your students at the university, is that this really started at the University of Sydney by Professor Colin Sullivan. He developed the first prototypes were actually glued to someone's face, and they used a pool pump, literally a pool pump, and to create the positive air pressure to keep the airway open at night. As Professor Sullivan, he looked to scale and commercialize the technology. He finally crossed paths with Peter Farrell. Peter Farrell went on to found ResMed and continued to develop the CPAP product into a product that could really expand the use of CPAP and bring it to the world. This happened quite quickly, around a 10-year period.
So since then, ResMed's gone on to deliver, gone on to deliver on this promise, I guess, of making CPAP masks, CPAP machines, in-home life support ventilators, more comfortable, quieter, and easy to use. We're now around 30 years on from that sort of date. Working to help people with sleep apnea, COPD, and other chronic respiratory illnesses, hopefully breathe and live a better sort of life.
Although we've made all these advances, there's so much room to innovate and design in this particular space. Okay, let's take a look at how we got to the product you see on the screen today.
Yeah, so this is what we call our AirFit N30i mask. It's what we call a nasal cradle mask. It delivers therapy from a flow generator through a tube down through what we call a conduit or a frame into the nostrils.
The scale of the problem is huge. So let's start with the size of the problem, how big it is. Well, it's actually quite huge. Around 1 billion of the world's population is estimated to have obstructive sleep apnea, and with rates as high as 80% being undiagnosed.
Yeah, that's really no small problem, right? And it's split across genders and ethnicities, and it's not really a discriminatory sort of illness, right?
So it's a fantastic area for industrial designers to be in, because this is such a big problem and affects so many people.
I was going to say one of the many challenges we face, with developing a product like this is, producing a product that fits on all shapes, sizes, ethnicities, and ages. And I guess the key here is at scale, right, Paul?
To do this at scale is extraordinary. When we deal with the anthropometrics, it's remarkable how different people's face shapes and sizes are.
Another sort of interesting challenge, I guess, when we're designing these products is meeting multiple regulations. We're a global company. We sell to a global audience, I guess, and And as our CPAP masks are classified as medical devices, we've got a fair few stringent and unique requirements that we have to meet. Yeah, lots of requirements.
A lot of restrictions on a product like this, but that's one of the great challenges. So both Shannon and I are industrial designers, and so we've worked on a lot of products. And for some of the industrial design students watching, some of these products, like cell phones or a mouse or a camera, might be quite familiar. And when you're working on these products, you have the opportunity to sort of hide a lot of the components. You can place them inside an enclosure, and you have some freedom to style the outside to make the surface smooth, or to give it a shape or a design language, while tucking away all the bosses and the ribs and the screws and whatnot that hold the product together.
Yeah, there's a sort of certain freedom that comes with that, right? Being able to sort of hide those functional details and skin or skin a design form, right? While being able to sort of hide those functions.
Yeah, and these are the sort of products that Shannon and I certainly have worked on in the past. So our product doesn't really have an inside and an outside. Our form is also the function. The interface and the functional details make up the look and feel of our masks. This is like many other wearable products. People probably haven't seen our product before, so this makes it a bit of a greater challenge. Now, some of the products that are sort of similar would be eyeglasses or goggles or scuba wear or ski masks, where the designer has to attend to both the inside and the outside of the product. We have all the challenges of doing the inside and the outside of the product, but then trying to make the product familiar enough for people to use, even if they've never seen this product before.
Yeah, and our interfaces become, big parts of, driving the form and the shape of our products, right? So, we spend a lot of time working on how do we make those interfaces meet a form and a function that is familiar, sort of not stand out, and how do we, on what sometimes is largely transparent devices, how do we make those almost invisible, right?
Make it intuitive in a product that they've not seen before.
Yeah,
that's quite a great design challenge. This is a quick introduction to some of the ResMed family because the scale is so big. Now, this is not just our design family right here. This is all the other people that are needed to make a product like this possible. We have the engineering and manufacturing and everything that goes into making a product like that. But this is a nice shot of where we work. This is the Innovation Building, and it's right in front of the River of Innovation, and across this is actually our manufacturing site as well. So you can see that is a great big team that it takes to put together a product like this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess even before we start creating physical products or, any sort of designs, our designers and engineers strive to understand, who they're designing for, what are the goals of the product going to be, and I guess we strive to never forget that, we're designing for people. People are the center of what the outcome is. We truly do believe in sort of user-centric design here.
Yeah, and it's not only that we're designing for people, we're designing for people that are going to wear our product every night. So it is a very intimate product. And this is always in the forefront when we're designing this product.
So yeah, this is the start of, I guess, any good design process, but definitely one that we sort of use here is definitely making sure that we really understand these problems and what we're sort of going out to target.
So we work closely with our marketing department to understand where and how a new product will fit into the market and what the critical requirements are that we need to think of in order to create a successful product. We sell our products at a large scale. So it's important that we work together with all the other disciplines in our company.
And this is where we'll have certain country-specific regulations or certain,
point, yeah.
you know, country-specific marketing regulations or, you know, clinical regulations or, you know, even down to what we need to do from a, you know, a road mapping point of view in our own portfolio, right?
Yep.
This is where we culminate and bring all those requirements together and sort of start to get a feel of what boundaries, I guess, we're starting to work in, right?
Yeah, the healthcare requirements in each country is different. So we have a big scope that we have to take into consideration as we're designing the product and understanding the requirement.
So we definitely know that CPAP therapy, you know, it can restrict users from their normal bedtime routines. You know, it's not necessarily natural, and you know, most of us take that sort of natural sleep for granted. So the challenge for this product, the N30i, was really around designing a solution that would give people the freedom to sleep in any position. Something that generally, you know, had been taken away from them as they started to sort of get on their sleep apnea journey. So the goal for this product was really about that freedom and letting people sleep how they wanted or how they used to.
So at this point in the process, we've established our primary goals. And this is where we start to really dig in and start to ideate. We challenge ourselves to explore multiple concepts on a theme. So we have our theme, we know what we want to accomplish. And as a team, we work out potential product concepts that will add additional value while solving our core challenges. Here's some initial early sketches of architectural exploration, where different teams will try to come up with how do we best solve this problem and add value overall to the product.
So I guess this is the first stage of sort of sketching and working out what are the building blocks that we want to put into a product like this, I guess.
And so we're referring to this here as architecture.
Yeah, then we further develop those architecture sketches, right? And we sort of look at you know, ideating details, adding finer functionality, working on specific parts of a mask. You know, again, these are some examples of some of our early sketches from some of our designers, you know, that were generated as part of that exploration phase of the project. I guess we were trying to work out what are some of the nuances inside those architectures.
Yeah, so at this point in the journey, you know, it's possible that the designers might go off sort of on their own to some degree and start working up some ideas and then eventually bring them back into the group.
This is a simple one, right?
It might sound simple, but a whiteboard really is an important tool in our design process. Whiteboard discussions, and this is pre-COVID. This was designed so you see people without masks. We will bring in multiple disciplines. So there might be engineers who specifically know flow or other dynamics or structural engineering, that we can bring the designers and engineers and people specialties in their area together on a whiteboard. So this is a great way to work out ideas. So it's something that we do here at ResMed. We still work on a whiteboard when we can. And
yeah, it's a big part of our sort of, you know, our diverge and converge sort of process, right? Where, you know, our designers and engineers will go off and sort of diverge a bit, and then we'll all get together again and come back and sort of diverge on those ideas, get a bit of focus and sort of run towards what that next divergence looks like, right?
Yeah. So it looks simple, but an important part of the process.
Yeah, and I guess after that sort of conceptualizing, you know, this is when we start to take some things off the page. And we start to bring those concepts to life, right? This is where we start to physically start prototyping things. And I guess probably an important distinction here is, we're yet to jump into CAD. We're yet to jump into anything sort of formal. We're still talking about really rough sketching, ideas, thought bubbles, and now trying to do the same thing in a 3D form without spending too much time trying to, design the detail, right?
Yeah, a lot of students might find this surprising, but we're not at CAD at this point. And we actually do get together as a group. We also often run workshops where we'll work together and quickly mock up three-dimensional sketches in a way. This is important because this is a product you wear. It's not something you hold in your hand. It actually physically has to be worn. So we're actually testing concepts at this point. We're actually building things. People are getting on sewing machines or cutting things up and actually seeing what things look like in 3 dimensions.
And we've got a wide range of ways to do this, right? But I mean, again, some of this might sound a little bit obvious, right? But we jump in hands-on, right? We've got plenty of existing parts and bits and pieces in our labs. We've got some really great facilities here at ResMed for sort of making some of this stuff in prototyping labs and studios. But it really is getting in there and just building some stuff, building some designs out of stuff that we have lying around, right?
Yeah, it's remarkable. You might think in this day and age, your whole skill set is CAD, but these hand skills are still incredibly valuable. And this is how we are able to progress a design along.
Even down to, there's a bit of an image there of a microscope, right? Some of these things are quite fine and fiddly, right? But it's definitely a skill we utilize a lot here.
Yeah, it's very skilled people here. This is a technique, we're kind of laughing because we call this cut and shut. So that is, we're creating a pneumatic splint. At some point, we have to shut the hose, so to speak. We have to close. So we have to cut pieces apart and eventually glue or silicone them together to actually create something that is shut.
Airtight,
right?
Yeah. So we can start to see what it's going to do as a pneumatic system or a system that's going to provide air. Right? Yeah, we use heaps and heaps of different materials, right? Silicons, fabrics, plastics, you name it. We'll be playing around with it in this sort of prototyping phase, right?
Yeah. There's people here who are fantastic using a sewing machine, using cutting machines, and all these things come together as we're making a product. And a lot of experimentation happens at this point. Okay, so now if we have to mold something in silicon,
something that's a little harder to make than what we can make by hand, right? Once we sort of get to the detail where we've gone as far as we can with the sort of cutting and shutting and gluing things together.
Yeah, this is a fantastic technique. I think we've developed this quite well here at ResMed, where we will quickly cut up a 3-dimensional mold. So we'll make a mold, we'll print it off using
a 3D printer.
3D printer, and we'll inject silicone into it. This allows us to get close to what a silicon product might look like and how it might behave. Now, it's not as fine a detail as true molding, but it starts to get us into the ballpark and understand a bit more about the product that we're making.
Yeah, and it allows us to do it in a rapid way, right? Where we can again experiment with multiple shapes and sizes and details on these.
Yeah, and it's not a terribly expensive way of doing it. We're not machining a tool. Yeah. Most of the people here can build this knock it off on their CAD overnight, send it down to the printer, and we can start.
The next day we can start shooting parts off them, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't limit ourselves to one material. It's interesting as we're designing. We're almost kind of like making a collage of parts. I find this fascinating because I love art and various collaged artworks. But in a sense, we do that here just naturally by combining any material that we can use to start evolving our forms. The materials you'll be looking at here, you've got silicon and plastic, 3D printed parts. Yeah, and all these are put together very early in our model making.
Yeah, and it's prototype for the thing we want to learn at the time, right? So again, the end product, some of these images here you're looking at, the end product might be fully silicon, right? But for this point in the project, we were molding them out of rigid 3D printed materials, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how the parts were going to work and fit the head and do things like that, right? So we definitely use our prototyping depending on what we're trying to learn at the time, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily what the product's going to look like at the end.
Yeah, this is a learning process, which is really one of the really tremendously enjoyable things when we're designing here at ResMed.
And this is another interesting one, right? So as we're creating things that we haven't done before, new shapes, new ways of doing things, we're also finding, we have to create jigs and fixtures and measurement tools to be able to actually prove or test or measure what we've created, right? So we're constantly building measuring devices or, like I said, jigs and fixtures
Ways of
play
checking
with these things,
angles,
right?
things that, because we're dealing with shapes that have never seen life before. We're completely inventing new shapes. And so often there's new tools required. So this is one of the things, we have a lot of great people who can just think on their feet and create some of these terrific ways of measuring and quantifying the different things that we're making.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't sort of always recognize as a designer, is about some of these things you have to design around your product or things that you have to design to actually make your product come to life, right?
Yeah, I'm always surprised at the creativity around here. Some of the people that come up with these ideas, it's remarkable. And that makes it quite a lot of fun. Making a tool or something that you have no idea how you're going to measure this thing, and someone comes up with this great idea. So that's a great part about this.
Yeah, so as we sort of increase the fidelity of our prototypes that we build, we move on from those cut and shut parts, those 3D printed molds. We really start getting into some of the CAD here, right? And we've got a great sort of in-house modeling lab where we can machine and make our own aluminium tools. And it basically gives us that next level fidelity, right? Some of these techniques give us a better way to sort of feel how a production part's going to behave and perform, right?
Yeah, and these are aluminum tools, so they're not production tools, but you'll get the fidelity of a part will look like a production part, and then we can really start to understand how these parts will operate and seal and feel. So this is a very important part of the process.
Yeah, it just gives us that as close to sort of a real part as we can get at this stage of the project.
A level
right?
of confidence in the design at this stage.
Yeah, we can start molding wall sections that are much, much thinner than what we can do on a sort of a cast or a 3D printed part, right?
Much thinner. Those parts look simple. They're not. So as we move the design forward, we go through a process where these concepts are built up to a higher level of fidelity, so that we can make decisions on a design that we truly feel is going to meet our goals. So this is an entire process of making a design decision. There's some winners and some losers, but the best design moves forward. Now that we have a proof of concept, the challenge now becomes how to scale this, and how to scale this in many different ways.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a direction on what the product needs to look like as a system, but it's yet not going to fit the global population that we're trying to fit it on, right? It's what we were saying today, Paul. It's sort of, it fits a few, but it's not going to fit many yet, right?
No.
So yeah, this is where we start to really put the detail into what our sizing strategy is going to look like, how many components that we're going to have, fit ranges, all the other things that go into making a product, not just a single product, but an actual
Yeah, so
scalable
even if the design direction is done, say, okay, this is the design. Now the whole second stage of the design work is getting this to fit on a wide range of people. We like to think that we can fit everyone. So we create what we call a fit range. Because we mass produce a product, right, in the millions, we try to accommodate the entire population in as few options as we can. People don't want a million options. They want to fit like you would in a clothing size in some ways, small, medium, large. It's like this to fit the entire population, so we can really ramp up production on the volume that we need to accommodate the amount of people that we're trying to fit. So this is beginning of the next stage of design.
So in the past, to work out what these fit ranges look like, we've physically had to measure and rely on sort of linear dimensions of facial features.
That's a big task. That was really time consuming.
Yeah, and that was to sort of work out how these were going to fit. Today we're fortunate enough to have technology where we can measure much more complex 3D facial scans. There's a bit of a video there playing on, which is just an example of how we can now, in CAD, work out what different shapes, sizes, ethnicities look like, and we can morph between those, and we can actually, start designing towards these more complex shapes.
Yeah, we'll get an early indication of if the fit range is working and how many cushions we need to fit the general population.
Yeah.
Okay, up until this point, we haven't discussed the headgear yet, and we use the term headgear. I don't know if it's really it's not a term commonly used, but this is what we use in house. Headgear is it's really one of the most complex part of the entire system. It looks deceptively simple, but like many things in this particular area of design, it looks simple, but it can be incredibly complex. The stability of the entire system really is dependent on the headgear. So we have to deal with the stretch of these materials, the range of fit sizes for these materials, the wear of these materials. We're using Velcro, and how easy they are to use. And on top of all that, all of the colors and materials have to be biocompatible to a much higher level than normal clothing, because this is a medical device.
And some of the images there you can see, so what looks like a sort of a simple shape, there are so many ways you could go about that, through ultrasonic welding, stitching, how you create splits in the straps. So it's like sort of Paul said, it's a fairly complicated thing, although our goal is to make it look simple at the end of the day.
Yeah, and as you look at that little graphic and you think, oh, that's just a simple split. The way these perform on people is very, very different. So these minor differences in the size of these splits can make a huge difference in the stability and comfort when people are wearing our products.
And that's even down to the shapes, sort of in those splits there, right? They do different things when you put them into a 3D form on the head, which means they'll do different things to the stability or how that's going to sit or not sit.
Yeah.
Position, right?
Yeah, we're showing this in the 2D CAD essentially. But remember, this is a wraparound. This is a three-dimensional product. So gauging its behavior is quite a challenge. So in order to get the correct fit range and the maximum comfort, even after we've developed a variety of prototypes of headgear, we have to make sure that they fit comfortable on all kinds of size and shapes of heads. So we use this type of testing to really get down to a fit range. We do a lot of this internally. So for the designers here, we really live and breathe our product. Everybody has to be, when you're working on a product, you need to fit it and try it and see how it performs.
Experience it, right?
Experience it, yes. So it's a big part of designing a product like this is the experience of it.
We do so much testing internally to make sure that we're, heading in the right direction. Some of the, the assumptions we're putting down on paper, are true and correct. We're fitting what we think we're going to fit based on, our anthropometrics sort of data, and does that back up to true life?
Yeah. We're showing a little graphic of a few of our people here, but believe me, there's many people are fitted on these before we can finally move to the final design on the headgear.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're starting to pull together a complete product.
So I guess this is more on that internal testing, right? So we're lucky enough to have actual, bedrooms here in our office, right, where we can go and lay down on a bed and test these things out. So, I mean, this is a picture of me and one of our designers here, come on, doing a test on N30, before it was launched, trying to figure out, if it's going to seal, if it's going to move around. And, we try to put it through its paces. We try to do things that people are going to do. People might not think they're going to do.
Will it remain efficacious? Will it still be delivering therapy, even under all the different positions people sleep in? It's a very interesting part of our jobs. It might be kind of unique to, one of the things that's unique to ResMed, I think.
Yeah, and to your point before, right? It's something that we expect all our designers to do, right? Is to actually put themselves in the shoes of the person who's going to wear this, right? So where we can feel and see and touch, what they're going to do, right?
It's how you design a great product. It really is. You have to experience it. So once we have tested the headgear and the headgear sizing, we've targeted down to the number of headgear that we need. We have a complete system. We've tested it internally in the bedroom test. Then we do internal testing for sizing to make sure that we're going to fit everybody. So we're able to show some of these images, and I'm just going to use this to illustrate. Once we do the internal testing, we then move to external testing. Obviously, we're not going to show pictures of people that were fitted for privacy reasons, but we do a tremendous amount of external. This is all before a product is released to make sure that it fits on every possible ethnicity and size and age.
And we do this in market, right? So we do this both from a clinical perspective and from a fitting perspective too, right? So yeah, lots and lots of testing, just to make sure that, again, this is going to be exactly what we say it's going to be.
We are fortunate at ResMed. We have a very unique position, is since we're kind of from art to part. We're sitting in the Innovation Center at the moment, and literally I can look across and we can see our manufacturing center, which is a lovely manufacturing center. We have that on site here, and we also have that in Singapore.
So that photo on the right there, that's literally our view out of our office window every day. Yeah. We can walk across that bridge and go and see this stuff being made. We can go in there and work on our development tooling. We can go in there and work on all sorts of stuff throughout the process, right? But it's such a direct and intimate connection to our manufacturing facilities, and I think it's a real advantage for our designers. Right?
I think for designers to have that direct connection is extraordinary. We always have to take the design for manufacturing into consideration, and having the manufacturing right here makes that much more possible than if you don't have access to manufacturing.
Yeah. And again, so whether that's ramping at the end of the production phase or experimenting at the beginning of the phase, right? That factory and that facility and those expertise are there for us to be able to use and call upon, right? So we end with the product, right? We've had great success. Yeah, we've had great success with this product in market. I think it's more than 2 million products in the market at the minute.
There must be over 10 million spare components sold as well.
I think it's fair to say that, you know, both Paul and I take great pride in how many lives we've been able to touch with this product. You know, hopefully helping them get a better night's sleep, right? Yeah. We were also lucky enough to win a Good Design Award for this product in the medical and scientific category. So yeah, it's been great to see the sort of market react to it. It's been great to see something like this get to market after, you know, all the the hours and hard work that the teams here put into it. And it was a really fun thing to work on.
Yeah, it's one of the very rewarding things is that we actually improve people's lives. It's one of the greatest things you can do as an industrial designer. So we're very proud about that. So we've talked today about the story behind the N30i, but the end solution, it's more than just one product. It's part of a wider system that includes our AirSense 11 flow generator device and the UX behind it. I think Justin and Rowan are going to dive into that in the next behind the product session.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll be able to give you a glimpse at what the rest of the ecosystem looks like. And you know, as Paul said, that's all of these things are used in combination to treat sleep apnea, right? It's not one product alone. It's the ecosystem of things that come together to sort of you know,
make the whole system
make the whole system work.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
That's sort of. I guess that's where we're at too, right? I guess we'd just like to say thanks to the guys at USW for giving us the opportunity to talk, and thanks for everyone listening to our story. And I guess we can throw it open to some Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Shannon. That was a great insight into the journey. And yeah, just to see everything that is involved. So we are going to get the questions via the chat. I can see there's one question already there. While we're waiting for other questions, let's take that one first. It's from Miles Park. And he's asking about your silicone molds. And he says, when injecting silicone into sketch model 3D print tools, do you just use a low pressure hardware chalking gun?
Caulking gun.
Something like that, right? Yeah, it's yes, definitely low pressure.
Low pressure. You know, yeah, it's humorous. It's evolved. It's an incredible process that has evolved. I don't think there's any trade secrets into that. You inject something into the mold. There was a point where, in the very beginning, we actually would use a syringe, like a plastic syringe, and press it down really hard.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. So the next question is from Mitchell Brooks, and he asks, what is the time from project kickoff to selling the product?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd probably say, you know, typically it's, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on the project.
Yeah, 2 years would be pretty quick, I think, for a product like this, but could be, yeah.
It also depends on when you start the clock too, right?
Yeah.
Do you start the clock at the concept selection, or you know, at the time when you're trying to figure out what the problem to solve is?
Yeah. It's not 2 weeks.
Definitely not.
somewhere along those lines.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Daniela Martinez, one of our staff members. She asks, and she says, first, thank you so much. We are very lucky to hear the process behind this product. 3D sketches and mixed material mockups are something we really stress out to our students at UNSW. So how long would you spend on hand mockups, or how many handmade mockups would you make before moving into CAD?
Oh, hundreds, literally hundreds. We recently had a cleanup of, we had to move out some older parts, and they're literally mountains of parts. It's yes, a lot. There's no sense in limiting the creative process at that point. So much comes out of it.
Yeah, and we find it's much better to quickly build some low fidelity hand prototypes and build 5 or 6 of them in a couple of days period or a time frame, right? Then sort of spend a week on CAD finding out that it's not quite what you wanted anyway.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something we put a lot of effort into here in our teams, is to, build those, or have those skills of, hand prototyping and
Yeah.
sketching.
And I would emphasize that the sort of cross collaboration, like, you just steal other people's ideas. You just always you just look at an idea. Somebody might throw the idea away, and you might see some little germ in there that makes it possible. Some of the stuff is laughable. It's so silly, but someone can pick up that idea and really run with it.
Right?
Yeah.
I think we've got a bit of a term here. We call it borrowing with pride.
Yeah.
That's a great term. And it's nice to hear the collaboration and how you use that at ResMed.
Yeah.
And one more question, and then I have a question. So the next question is from Matthias Eversheim, and he says, hi, in order to meet design standards all over the world, does the design of your product vary in different countries?
We tend to try and create a product that we can have globally. There are different requirements, but I guess as part of our our great teams in regulatory and systems engineering, we try to disseminate all of those requirements across into a single set of requirements and design holistically within essentially all the requirements we have.
Yeah, there's certain, I would say there's certain products are popular in certain countries. One product that's really popular in one country might not be in another country. So we do have quite a variety of products. We do have a large portfolio. And yes, certain they definitely gear towards certain countries, will gravitate to certain products.
Okay, so my question is about the testing, and you've mentioned that you're doing, and we saw the videos of the internal testing, which is great. You have all these facilities, and then you mentioned there's lots of user testing outside afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 questions actually. How many will again be the question? How many users do you need to test? And the next question will be about the clinical trials. How do you handle those ones?
Yeah, good question. How many do we need to test? It probably depends. Depends on the product. On this particular product, I don't know. I don't know if I could remember. We tested so many people, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are really large numbers.
And I guess it's also we test over the life cycle of the process too, right? So it's not a we get 3 years into the project and we decide to go out and test it. We're sort of testing in chunks as we go through, and sort of validating and proving to ourselves what that sort of looks like, right?
Yeah, we wouldn't individually, we wouldn't experience all of the testing that occurs. So I don't think I can put a number on it. I don't know, actually.
It's quite large. But yeah, I guess the second one is the clinical trials. There are I guess a different test altogether. We'll work with our clinical teams, and we'll actually find SMEs or people with sleep apnea to go and try these things for longer periods of time, right? And we have to do that with all sorts of ethics approvals and things like that, because we're actually affecting people's.
And so SME would be subject
matter
experts. Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting.
I'm a subject matter expert, actually. Because I use one. Yes, for 16 years I've been on CPAP. In fact, when I getting a job at ResMed, I contacted and said I could do a better job designing those things. And they said, "Oh yeah, okay, give it a try."
So we invited Paul in. It's been amazing.
Well, you definitely can. One more question. Mark Bertinetti is asking a question. Great talk, guys. He says, really well delivered. And he also adds, when I worked at ResMed, I was told I was crazy when I proposed moving the swivel to the top of the head in 2205. As they said, the air would get pinched by the side tube and it would be too bulky. But you guys made it work and have brought it to life. Congratulations. It's a great product.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, and like we said, nothing's crazy, right? There's always there's a workable solution in a lot of things, right? It's just the right time, right place, right momentum.
Referencing back to the person asking about the silicone molds, you do have to make sure there are vent ports when you put the pressure on. Just there's a tip for you. when you inject the silicone.
Great, thank you for the tip. One more question from Mariano Ramirez. He says, thanks, Paul and Shannon. Was the end of life and sustainability of these masks part of the brief? Some ResMed hospital masks are disposable due to single patient use and prevent contamination. Is there any system for collecting used masks for recycling and material recovery?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's the medical world's such a tough industry on that. It's definitely a changing landscape. The sustainability is something that we're bringing more and more into, I guess, our design process.
There are several projects running currently on how to do that, how to recycle and how to minimize the waste. Yes.
But this particular product, so it's designed so it can be sort of what we call clean between uses. So in some clinics or some labs, you are able to sort of disinfect and clean and reuse these masks.
Yeah, the MPMU version, where we can do that. Yeah.
Well, that brought us to our last question. I'm just looking and trying to see if there are any more questions, but no. So I think we have now to wrap up. I'll just thank you so much again, Paul and Shannon. It was amazing to see this incredible behind the scenes stories. A heartfelt thank you. And you also already mentioned the next talk for the number 6, which is in 3 weeks. So thank you again for generously sharing this journey. And to all the attendees that joined us this evening, thank you all for joining us, because you made the evening even more special. But before you leave, I just want to show you again the talk that will be in 3 weeks. So put it in your calendars. We'll have Justin Formica and Rowan Follam presenting from ResMed, and again curated by Christina Zlomislich Brancaccio. Thank you, Christina. Thank you all very much again. Stay tuned for the invitations for our next event. And until then, stay safe and well. Goodbye, everyone.